The antique shop on West Randolph smelled like old leather and forgotten promises. I'd been working there for 3 months, ever since the hospital bills from Mom's stroke had started arriving like relentless waves, each one higher than the last. 27 years old, and I was drowning in debt that wasn't even mine, watching my mother waste away in a nursing home I could barely afford. Elara, stop daydreaming and help Mrs. Chen with those estate boxes. Bernard, my boss, called from behind the register. His voice carried the perpetual irritation of a man who'd spent 40 years buying people's memories at bargain prices. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. I wiped dust from my hands and approached the loading dock where Mrs. Chen, a tiny woman in her 70s, stood beside 3 large cardboard boxes. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and I knew without asking that these boxes contained pieces of someone she'd loved. My husband passed 6 months ago, she said quietly, confirming my suspicion. I kept everything until now, but I can't anymore. The apartment is too small, and the memories are too big. I understood that feeling intimately. I'm so sorry for your loss. 52 years of marriage. She touched one of the boxes gently. Reduced to this. Funny how a whole life fits into cardboard, isn't it? I helped her unload, carefully extracting vintage watches, cufflinks, leather-bound books, old photographs that nobody would want but her. Bernard would price it all, sell what he could, discard the rest. The business of grief, sanitized and profitable. After she left, I began cataloging the items. That's when I found it, wedged between the pages of a water-damaged photo album. A ring, not just any ring, but a wedding band that made my breath catch. White gold, maybe platinum, with an inscription worn smooth by years of wear. The band itself was elegant but masculine, clearly expensive, and wrapped around it was a delicate chain, as if someone had been wearing it as a necklace. I held it up to the light. The metal was tarnished but still beautiful. On the inside, I could barely make out engraved words. Sempre insieme. 10, 15, 2018. Always together. October 15th, 2018. Something about it felt wrong. This ring didn't belong in Mrs. Chen's husband's belongings. It was too distinctive, too valuable. Either it had been mixed in by mistake, or Mr. Chen had acquired it somehow. A mystery from someone else's life that had ended up in his possession. Bernard appeared at my elbow. What's that? A wedding ring. It was in the Chen estate items, but I don't think it belongs there. He plucked it from my hand, examined it with a jeweler's loupe he kept in his vest pocket. His eyebrows rose. Platinum, custom work, worth at least $5,000, maybe more. He set it on the counter. Tag it at 3,000. Someone will buy it, but it might not be ours to sell. I picked it up again, protective. What if it was lost? What if someone's looking for it? Then they should have kept better track of their jewelry. Bernard returned to his register. This is a business, Elara, not a lost and found. Tag it and price it, or I'll do it myself. I stood there holding the ring, feeling its weight in my palm. The inscription haunted me. Sempre insieme. Always together. Someone had worn this ring as a promise, as a symbol of forever. And now it was just inventory in a dusty antique shop, waiting to be sold to the highest bidder. I couldn't do it. That evening, instead of going straight to the nursing home to visit Mom, I sat in the back room of the shop with my laptop, researching the inscription. Italian, obviously. The date was 5 years ago. I searched for missing wedding rings in Chicago, engagement announcements from October 2018, anything that might lead me to the rightful owner. Nothing came up that matched. But something nagged at me about the quality of the ring, the craftsmanship. This wasn't something you bought at a chain jewelry store. This was custom, probably commissioned by someone with money. Serious money. On impulse, I photographed the ring and posted it to a local Chicago lost and found group on social media. Found. Platinum wedding band with Italian inscription. Date. 10/15/2018. Trying to return to rightful owner. No reward necessary. Just want to do the right thing. I didn't expect anything to come of it. Chicago was a city of millions. What were the odds? The response came 3 hours later. Not as a comment on my post, but as a direct message from an account with no profile picture and only initials. D. M. Where did you find that ring? This is extremely important. I need to speak with you immediately. Please call this number. A phone number with a 312 area code followed. My heart hammered as I stared at the message. Something about the urgency felt both hopeful and dangerous. But I'd started this, and I needed to finish it. I dialed the number. A man answered on the first ring. This is Dominic. His voice was deep, controlled, with the kind of authority that made you sit up straighter, even over the phone. Hi, I'm Elara. I posted about a wedding ring I found. You messaged me? A pause, then carefully. Describe it. I did, in detail. The platinum band, the inscription, the delicate chain it had been threaded through. The silence that followed stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Where are you right now? He finally asked. I'm at work. Randolph Antiques on West Randolph. Stay there. I'm sending someone to meet you. His name is Marco. He'll be there in 15 minutes. The line went dead before I could respond. I sat frozen, the ring clutched in my hand. I'd expected maybe a grateful owner, a simple exchange. Not this, not whatever this was turning into. Every instinct I'd developed, growing up on the South Side, told me I'd just stepped into something complicated. But it was too late to back out now. Marco arrived in exactly 15 minutes. I watched through the shop window as a black SUV pulled up to the curb. A vehicle so clean it looked like it had been detailed that morning. A man stepped out, mid-30s, built like he spent serious time in a gym, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The bell chimed as he entered. His eyes swept the shop with professional assessment, cataloging exits and sightlines before settling on me. Elara? It wasn't really a question. I nodded, suddenly very aware that Bernard had left hours ago, and I was alone in the shop. I'm Marco. Mr. Moretti sent me to retrieve his property. He extended a hand. His grip was firm but not threatening. He'd like to thank you personally. Would you be willing to come with me? Come with you where? To his home. It's not far, River North. He's very eager to have the ring returned. Marco's expression remained neutral, professional. I assure you, you're in no danger. Mr. Moretti is simply a man who wants back something that belongs to him. I should have said no. Should have handed over the ring and walked away. But curiosity, and something else I couldn't name, made me nod. Okay. But I need to lock up the shop first. The drive to River North took 20 minutes through evening traffic. Marco didn't make small talk, just drove with the same professional competence he'd shown in the shop. The SUV's interior was immaculate. Leather seats that had never known a coffee stain. Climate control that actually worked. We pulled up to a high-rise that screamed money. The kind of building where doormen wore uniforms and knew everyone's name. Marco escorted me through a lobby with marble floors and modern art that probably cost more than my mother's entire nursing home bill, into a private elevator that required a key card. Penthouse, he said simply, inserting the card. My stomach dropped as the elevator rose. What was I doing? I was a broke antique shop employee going to meet a stranger in his penthouse because I'd found a ring. This was how true crime podcasts started. But the elevator doors opened, and I stepped into something that looked more like an art gallery than an apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Chicago skyline, the city lights just beginning to twinkle in the dusk. The space was open, minimalist, expensive in a way that whispered rather than shouted. A man stood at the windows, silhouetted against the dying light, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that suggested Italian heritage. He didn't turn when we entered, just continued staring out at the city. Sir, Miss Elara is here, Marco announced. The man turned slowly, and I forgot how to breathe. He was younger than I expected, maybe mid-30s, with the kind of face that belonged in a museum, all sharp angles and classical proportions. But it was his eyes that stopped me. Dark brown, almost black, and filled with something that looked like barely contained grief. You found my ring. His voice was the same one from the phone, but in person, it carried weight, presence, command. I pulled the ring from my pocket, where I'd been clutching it like a talisman. I think so. The inscription matches what you described. He crossed the space between us in 3 strides, took the ring from my hand. The moment his fingers touched the metal, his entire body went rigid. He turned away abruptly, his shoulders hunched as if the weight of the world had just settled there. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. "This is it," he said, voice rough. "This is hers." "Your wife's?" I asked gently. "My wife's." He slipped the ring onto his right hand, fourth finger, where it settled like it had always belonged there. "She died 3 years ago. I thought I'd lost this forever." The grief in his voice was palpable, raw despite the years. I stood awkwardly, unsure what to do with the pain that filled the beautiful space. "I'm so sorry for your loss," I said, the words feeling inadequate but necessary. He turned back to me, and I saw him really look at me for the first time. His gaze traveled from my secondhand coat to my practical shoes, taking in everything about me in a single sweep. "How much do you want for returning it?" The question caught me off guard. "I don't want anything. I just wanted to return it to its owner. That's all." Something flickered in his expression. "Surprise, maybe." "Nothing?" "Nothing. It wasn't mine to keep." I took a step toward the elevator. "I should go. I'm glad you have it back." "Wait." The command in his voice made me pause. "Sit, please. I want to understand how you found this." I hesitated, but Marco had already positioned himself by the elevator, making it clear I wasn't leaving until Dominic Moretti was satisfied. So I sat on a pristine leather sofa that probably cost more than my car, and I told him about the estate boxes, about Mrs. Chen, about finding the ring in a photo album that clearly hadn't belonged to her husband. He listened intently, his fingers absently turning the ring on his hand, a gesture that spoke of years of habit. "Mrs. Chen," he repeated when I finished. "I don't know that name, but 3 years ago, when Isabella died, many things disappeared in the chaos. Her jewelry, personal items. I assumed they'd been stolen, sold on the black market. I searched for this ring specifically. It was the one thing I needed back." He paused. "The one thing that connected me to her." "The inscription," I said quietly. "Always together. Our wedding date." His jaw tightened. "We had 8 years together. Not enough. Never enough." The grief in the room was suffocating. I'd spent months watching my mother slip away in a nursing home, knowing she'd never fully recover. But this man's loss felt different, permanent, final. How did she die? The question slipped out before I could stop it. His eyes went cold, shuddered. "An accident. That's all you need to know." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. I'd overstepped, pushed into territory I had no right to explore. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked." "No, you shouldn't have." He stood abruptly, walked back to the windows. "Marco will drive you home. Thank you for returning this. You have no idea what it means." I was being dismissed. I stood, relieved and strangely disappointed in equal measure. But as Marco escorted me back to the elevator, Dominic's voice stopped us. "What's your name?" "Your full name?" "Elara Hayes." "Elara Hayes," he repeated, as if memorizing it. "Thank you, truly." The elevator doors closed, and I descended from the penthouse feeling like I'd just stepped out of someone else's life and back into my own. End of part 1. The story continues with approximately 3,200 words delivered. This opening establishes Elara's humble circumstances, antique shop work, mothers, medical bills. The fateful discovery of the wedding ring Dominic Moretti as the grieving Mafia boss wealth, power, controlled grief. The collision of their two worlds through the ring, hints of danger and mystery. The accident, his controlled demeanor, Marco's professional security presence. Should I continue with part 2? Retry JC. Yes, part 2. The protection. I didn't expect to see Dominic Moretti again. I'd returned his ring, received his gratitude, and gone back to my life of overdue bills and nursing home visits. The encounter felt like a dream, the kind that fades with morning light until you're not sure it happened at all, except it had happened. And Dominic Moretti, it turned out, didn't forget debts. 3 days after returning the ring, I arrived at work to find Bernard in an unusually good mood. He actually smiled when I walked in, a sight so rare it made me check if I'd accidentally walked into the wrong shop. Elara, excellent timing. He gestured to his office. "We need to discuss your employment." My stomach dropped. This was it. He was firing me for not tagging that ring, for giving away inventory that could have brought in thousands. I'd known it was coming, Had prepared myself for it, but the reality still hit hard. Without this job, I couldn't pay for Mom's care. Couldn't keep her in the facility where she was finally stable. I followed him into the cramped office, already calculating how quickly I could find another job, how many shifts I could pick up, waiting tables or cleaning offices at night. Bernard sat behind his desk, that unsettling smile still in place. "I've sold the shop." "What?" That wasn't what I'd expected at all. An investment group made me an offer I couldn't refuse. They want to convert the space into a cafe or something modern. Millennials. He waved dismissively. But they've agreed to hire you as a consultant for their antique sourcing. Better pay, better hours. You'd be helping them authenticate pieces, curate, collections. It's a significant opportunity. I stared at him. Bernard had never done me a favor in 3 months, had actively resented every break I took, every early departure to visit Mom. This generosity made no sense. Why would they want me specifically? They were impressed by your eye for quality, your integrity. Bernard's smile thinned slightly. Apparently someone recommended you very highly. Understanding crashed over me like cold water. Dominic Moretti. I didn't ask for specifics. I just know that turning down this investment group would be, let's say, inadvisable. Bernard stood, extending his hand. Congratulations, Elara. You've caught a very powerful person's attention. Try not to waste it. I left his office in a daze. Outside, Marco leaned against that same black SUV, as if he'd been waiting for me. "Miss Hayes," he nodded politely. "Mr. Moretti would like to speak with you. Are you available?" It wasn't really a question. I glanced back at the shop, at Bernard watching through the window with barely concealed nervousness, and realized I'd stepped into something I didn't understand. Something that involved power and influence, and men who could buy antique shops on a whim, just to rearrange someone's life. "Does he do this often?" I asked Marco as we drove. "Buy businesses to help people? Mr. Moretti believes in repaying debts." Marco's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. "You returned something irreplaceable to him. He takes that seriously. I didn't do it for a reward. That's exactly why he's rewarding you." We didn't go to the penthouse this time. Instead, Marco drove to a restaurant in West Loop, the kind of place with a name in Italian and no prices on the menu. He led me through the main dining room, where elegant patrons ate food that looked more like art than sustenance, to a private room in the back. Dominic sat at a table set for 2, still wearing that ring on his right hand. He stood when I entered. A gesture of old-world courtesy that seemed natural on him. "Elara, thank you for coming." He gestured to the chair across from him. "I hope you don't mind lunch. I thought we should discuss your new position." I sat, hyper-aware of my work clothes, the dust probably still on my jeans from cataloging estate items that morning. "You bought an entire building to give me a job I didn't ask for." "I bought an investment property that happened to include your employment." "The building was undervalued, the location ideal. Your job was simply part of the negotiation." He poured water into my glass with practiced ease. "Bernard was overworking you, underpaying you, and taking advantage of your circumstances. I corrected that. You don't even know me. I know you returned a platinum ring worth $5,000 when you could have kept it or sold it. I know you work 60-hour weeks to pay for your mother's nursing care. I know you're drowning in medical debt that isn't your fault." His dark eyes held mine. "I know enough." The water glass trembled slightly in my hand. "You investigated me. I protect my interests. You became an interest the moment you returned Isabella's ring." He leaned back, studying me. "The job is real, Elara. The pay is fair, actually generous. You'll be authenticating antiques, consulting on acquisitions for my legitimate businesses. Nothing illegal, nothing dangerous. Just work that pays better than Bernard ever would. And in exchange? In exchange, you accept my gratitude." Something shifted in his expression. "I've spent 3 years searching for that ring. 3 years dealing with thieves and con artists and people who claim to have it just to extort money. You could have done the same. Instead, you posted in a lost and found group asking for nothing. Do you understand how rare that is in my world? Your world?" I repeated. "Which is what exactly?" A server entered before he could answer, placing plates of pasta that smelled like heaven in front of us. Dominic waited until we were alone again before speaking. I come from a family with complicated business interests, some legitimate, some less so. I've spent the past 3 years trying to transition everything to legal operations, to build something my wife would have been proud of. His fingers touched the ring unconsciously. Isabella hated the violence, the danger. Before she died, I promised her I'd find a different way. I'm still trying to keep that promise. She was the reason you're going legitimate. She was the reason for everything good I've ever done. The raw honesty in his voice made my chest tight. The ring you returned was the last piece of her I had left. Everything else was stolen or lost or burned when she died. That ring was my last connection. I took a bite of pasta, buying time to process. The food was incredible, rich, and perfectly seasoned, but I barely tasted it. I'm glad you have it back, but I can't accept a job I didn't earn. Payment for something I did, because it was right. Then earn it. He set down his fork. The position is real. The work is real. Come by tomorrow, meet the team, see what the job actually entails. If after a week you still think it's charity, you can walk away. But give it a chance. I wanted to refuse. Wanted to maintain the independence I'd fought so hard to preserve while watching my mother's medical bills pile up. But pride didn't pay for care facilities. Pride didn't keep Mom in a place where nurses knew her name and treated her with dignity. 1 week, I said finally. Trial basis. If I don't think I'm actually contributing, I'm out. Fair enough. He raised his water glass. To repaying debts and new beginnings. I clinched my glass against his, sealing an agreement I suspected I'd regret. The new job started the next morning, at an office space in the Loop that looked nothing like Bernard's cluttered shop. Clean lines, modern furniture, a team of 3. Other people who actually seemed excited about antiques, rather than just tolerating them for a paycheck. My new supervisor was a woman named Gianna, early 50s, with sharp eyes and a sharper wit. She showed me to a workspace that included an actual desk, a computer that didn't lag, and access to authentication databases Bernard had been too cheap to subscribe to. Dominic told me about your eye for quality, Gianna said, setting a box on my desk. These came in from an estate sale in Evanston. Tell me what's real and what's reproduction. I spent the next 3 hours examining items, taking notes, researching maker's marks and construction techniques. It was the kind of work I'd always loved but never had time for under Bernard's constant pressure to process inventory quickly rather than carefully. Gianna returned as I was finishing. She reviewed my notes, checked my assessments against her own list, and smiled. You flagged everything correctly, including the authentic Victorian brooch that's actually from a 1970 seconds reproduction line. You're good at this. I like it, I admitted. Actually being able to research properly instead of just guessing. Then you'll fit in fine here. She pulled out a file. Dominic's attending an estate auction next week. High-end pieces, some from old Chicago families. He wants you there to assess items before he bids. Think you can handle it? An estate auction. The kind I'd only read about, where single items sold for tens of thousands. I can try. Good. Because Dominic doesn't bring people into his inner circle lightly. If he trusts your judgment on that ring, he'll trust it on everything else. Gianna's expression grew serious. But understand something, Elara. Working for Dominic means being part of his world. That world has rules, expectations. People who work for him become his responsibility. He protects what's his. The possessiveness in that statement should have worried me. Instead, it just made me curious about what kind of man Dominic Moretti really was beneath the grief and the expensive suits. I spent the week immersing myself in the work, learning the systems, meeting clients who paid extraordinary amounts for pieces of history. Gianna was an excellent teacher, patient but exacting, and the rest of the team welcomed me without the resentment I'd expected. Dominic appeared occasionally, checking on projects, reviewing acquisitions. He was different in a professional setting, more contained, the grief I'd seen in his penthouse carefully locked away. But I caught him looking at the ring on his hand during quiet moments, his expression distant and sad. On Friday afternoon, Marco appeared at my desk. Mr. Moretti requests your presence at the estate auction tomorrow. 11 a.m. Gold Coast. Dress code is business formal. I didn't own business formal. My wardrobe consisted of work, jeans, and a few presentable shirts for nursing home visits. I don't have anything appropriate. Marco's expression didn't change. Mr. Moretti anticipated that. There's a package being delivered to your apartment this evening. Consider it part of your work uniform. The package arrived at 6 p.m., delivered by a courier who made me sign 3 different forms. Inside were 2 designer outfits, complete with shoes and accessories, each worth more than 2 months of my old salary. A note in elegant handwriting accompanied them. For the auction. Consider them work tools, not gifts. D.M. I tried on the first outfit, a tailored navy dress with matching heels, and barely recognized myself in the mirror. I looked competent, professional, like someone who belonged in the world of estate auctions and wealthy collectors. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Marco will pick you up at 10:30. Don't be nervous. You know more than you think you do, Dominic. How he'd gotten my personal number, I didn't ask. The estate auction was held in a Gold Coast mansion that made Dominic's penthouse look modest. Old money, the kind that had been in Chicago since before the fire, displayed in every perfectly preserved detail. Marco escorted me through rooms filled with people who looked like they'd stepped out of a luxury magazine. I spotted Dominic immediately, standing near a display case of jewelry, deep in conversation with an older man in an obviously expensive suit. He glanced up as we approached, and something flickered in his expression when he saw me. Approval, maybe, or surprise. He excused himself from his conversation and crossed to us. Elara, you look professional. His eyes traveled over the dress, clinical rather than predatory. Good. Half the battle at these things is looking like you belong. The other half is knowing what you're looking at. No pressure then, I said, trying for humor to cover my nerves. You'll be fine. He handed me a catalog. I've marked the items I'm interested in. Your job is to tell me if they're authentic and worth what they're asking. Trust your instincts. We moved through the displays together, Dominic introducing me to various people as his acquisitions consultant. I examined pieces, checked provenance documentation, whispered assessments to Dominic that he listened to with complete attention. The Tiffany lamp in lot 47, I said after studying it carefully. The metalwork doesn't match the period they're claiming. I think it's a later reproduction, maybe 1,970 seconds, not original arts and crafts. Dominic pulled out his phone, called someone, had a brief conversation in Italian. He hung up and smiled slightly. My jeweler agrees with you. The solder composition is wrong for pre-1920 work. Good catch. We continued like that through the morning, Dominic bidding on pieces I authenticated, passing on others I questioned. By lunch, he'd acquired a Victorian writing desk, 2 authentic Tiffany pieces I'd verified, and a collection of antique medical instruments that I'd confirmed were from the claimed period. You're good at this, he said, as we took a break in the mansion's garden, away from the crowds. Gianna was right to recommend bringing you. I love the work, I admitted. Actually getting to research properly, having time to verify instead of just guessing. It's what I always wanted to do. Then consider this your permanent position. He sipped espresso that a server had brought out. I attend these auctions monthly. I need someone who knows what they're looking at, who won't be swayed by reputation or fancy documentation. Someone honest. Because I returned a ring. Because you returned a ring when keeping it would have solved your problems. His dark eyes held mine. That kind of integrity is rare, especially in circles like these, where everyone has an angle. A woman's voice interrupted us. Dominic, darling, I didn't know you'd be here. I turned to see a stunning brunette approaching, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She was beautiful in that calculated way that spoke of personal trainers and expensive dermatologists. Every inch of her curated for maximum impact. Valentina. Dominic's voice cooled noticeably. I didn't realize the Rossi family collected antiques. We don't, usually, but Father heard there were some pieces from the Castellani estate. She turned that calculated smile on me. And who's this? Your new assistant? She's very young. Elara Hayes, my acquisitions consultant. Dominic's hand settled at the small of my back, a subtle but clear gesture of protection. Elara, this is Valentina Rossi. Her family has business interests that occasionally intersect with mine. The way he said, business interests, carried weight. I remembered what he'd said about his family's complicated operations. Some legitimate, some less so. Valentina Rossi came from the same world. Consultant. Valentina repeated, skepticism clear. How quickly. You've moved on, Dominic. It's barely been 3 years since Isabella. The garden temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Dominic's hand on my back tightened fractionally, his body going rigid with barely controlled anger. Isabella has nothing to do with my business relationships, he said, voice deadly quiet. And mentioning her was in poor taste. Valentina, I'm just surprised you're already parading new women around at society events. Her eyes raked over me dismissively. Though I suppose everyone grieves differently. That's enough. The command in Dominic's voice made even Valentina hesitate. You should rejoin your father. I'm sure he's wondering where you are. She left with a final contemptuous glance at me, her heels clicking sharply on the stone path. I stepped away from Dominic's touch, suddenly uncomfortable. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause problems. You didn't cause anything. Valentina did. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of agitation. Her family has been trying to form an alliance with mine since Isabella died. Marriage alliance. They see me as vulnerable. Available. Are you? Available? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Dominic's eyes snapped to mine, something dark and complicated in their depths. I wear my wife's ring every day. I sleep in a bed I can barely stand to look at because she used to sleep beside me. I run businesses I barely care about because I promised her I'd be better. His voice was raw. Does that sound available to you? No, I said quietly. It sounds like you're still in love with her. I'll always be in love with her. He touched the ring on his finger. She was the best part of me. The part that believed in something beyond power and money and family legacy. When she died, that part died too. The grief in his voice was overwhelming, suffocating. I wanted to offer comfort but had no idea how to comfort a man who'd lost everything that mattered. I should go. I said, let you finish the auction without complications. You're not a complication, Elara. He caught my wrist gently. You're someone who did something kind and honest in a world that rarely sees either. Don't let Valentina or anyone else make you feel like you don't belong here. But I didn't belong. Not in this world of mansion, auctions, and family alliances and women like Valentina who moved through society like predators. I was a girl from the South Side who'd returned a ring, nothing more. Except Dominic Moretti looked at me like I was something more. Like I was someone worth protecting, worth keeping close. And that terrified me more than anything else. Marco drove me home in silence, as if sensing I needed time to process. When we pulled up to my modest apartment building, he finally spoke. Miss Hayes, a word of advice? I paused, hand on the door handle. Mr. Moretti doesn't trust easily, doesn't let people into his life without reason. But when he does, he's fiercely protective. That protection can feel overwhelming sometimes. Marco's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. But it also means you're safer than you've ever been. People who hurt those under Dominic's protection tend to regret it. Is that a warning? It's an observation. Valentina Rossi is dangerous. Her family is dangerous. They don't like being told no, and they especially don't like new people in Dominic's circle who might influence him away from their interests. He paused. Just be careful. And if anything feels wrong, call the number I'm about to give you. He handed me a card with a single phone number. No name, no business logo. Memorize it, then destroy the card, Marco said. Day or night. You call that number if you need help. Someone will answer. I took the card, feeling like I'd just been handed a weapon I didn't know how to use. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just be smart. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about wedding rings and grieving widowers and women named Valentina, who saw me as a threat to carefully laid plans. I'd wanted to return a ring, do something kind. Instead, I'd stepped into a world of wealth and danger, and complicated family politics I didn't understand. My phone buzzed with a text from Dominic. Thank you for today. Your instincts were perfect. The desk alone will triple my investment. Get some rest. Tomorrow we discuss your future. My future. With a man who wore his dead wife's ring and looked at me like I was something precious and breakable. With a family that had complicated business interests and enemies who made veiled threats at garden parties. I should have been terrified. Should have been planning my exit strategy, rehearsing my resignation speech. Instead, I found myself thinking about the way Dominic had protected me from Valentina's contempt. The way he'd trusted my judgment on antiques worth hundreds of thousands. The way he'd looked when he talked about Isabella. Love and loss written so clearly across his face that it hurt to witness. I was in trouble. Deep trouble. The kind that started with returned rings and ended with hearts broken by men who would never fully heal from their own losses. But it was too late to walk away now. I was already invested, already tangled in Dominic Moretti's complicated world, already starting to care about a man who'd loved his wife so completely that 3 years later, he still couldn't let her go. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Dominic. By the way, I'm increasing your security detail. Marco will explain in the morning. It's precautionary, nothing to worry about. Sleep well, Elara. Security detail. Precautionary. Nothing to worry about. I stared at the message, understanding with crystal clarity that my life had just changed in ways I couldn't predict or control. And somewhere in the darkness of Chicago, Dominic Moretti sat awake in his penthouse, turning a platinum ring on his finger, mourning a woman who would never come back, while a living woman occupied more of his thoughts than she should. This was how it started. Not with grand gestures or declarations, but with small protections and growing trust, and the dangerous comfort of being seen by someone who'd stopped seeing anything beyond his own grief for 3 long years. I memorized Marco's number, then burned the card in my bathroom sink, watching the paper curl and blacken. Tomorrow, I'd ask questions. Tomorrow, I'd demand answers about security details and dangerous families and what it really meant to work for Dominic Moretti. But tonight, I let myself imagine what it might feel like to matter to someone like him, to be protected, valued, seen. It was a dangerous fantasy, the kind that got girls like me hurt. But I was already falling into it anyway, one returned ring at a time. End of Part 2. Part 2 has delivered approximately 4,200 words, bringing the total to approximately 7,400 words so far. This section established. The forced proximity. Dominic arranging the job. Glimpses of his vulnerability and grief over Isabella. Introduction of Valentina Rossi as antagonist. Threat. Growing connection between Elara and Dominic's security escalation. And hints of danger, Elara's internal conflict about entering his world. The complexity of Dominic's complicated business interests. Should I continue with Part 3, The Reckoning? Retry JC, yes. Part 3, The Reckoning. Marco arrived at 7 a.m., with coffee and a man he introduced as Luca. Mid-30s, ex-military if the posture was any indication, with the kind of observant stillness that suggested he missed nothing. Luca will be your primary security, Marco explained as we stood in my apartment's small living room. He'll maintain distance, won't interfere with your daily routine, but he'll be present any time you're outside your apartment or the office. I looked between them, still in my pajamas, coffee growing cold in my hands. This is because of Valentina. This is because you're associated with Mr. Moretti now, Marco corrected. That association makes you a person of interest to various parties. Some friendly, some less so. Mr. Moretti takes the safety of his people seriously. I'm not his people. I just work for him. Luca spoke for the first time, his voice surprisingly gentle. Miss Hayes, with respect, you became Mr. Moretti's people the moment he bought a building to ensure your employment, the moment he brought you to a society auction and introduced you as his consultant. In his world, those gestures mean something. They mark you as under his protection, which means others will either respect that or test it. Test it how? That's what I'm here to prevent you from finding out, Luca said simply. After they left, I sat in my apartment for a long time, trying to reconcile the life I'd had a week ago with the one I was living now. A week ago, I'd been drowning in debt, working 60 hours at a shop that barely paid minimum wage, visiting my mother in a nursing home I could barely afford. Now I had a job that paid triple, security guards, and a grieving mob boss's attention. The smart thing would be to walk away, thank Dominic for his generosity, quit the job, disappear back into anonymity. But I thought about Mom's nursing home bills, about the stability this job offered, about the way Dominic had looked when he talked about Isabella, like someone drowning who'd briefly surfaced for air. I couldn't walk away. Not yet. The week passed in strange routine. I worked at the office, authenticating pieces, preparing for upcoming auctions. Luca followed at a discreet distance, never intrusive but always present. Gianna continued teaching me the finer points of high-end acquisitions, and slowly, I began to feel competent, rather than like an imposter. Dominic appeared less frequently than that first week. When he did, He was professional, distant. The brief vulnerability from the garden, locked away behind practiced composure. He wore Isabella's ring constantly, I noticed, turning it absently during meetings or when he thought no one was watching. On Thursday evening, as I was preparing to leave, Gianna stopped by my desk. "Dominic's hosting a dinner tomorrow night. Potential business partners, some collectors, very upscale. He wants you there." My stomach tightened. "As what?" "I'm not qualified to schmooze with collectors." "As his acquisitions consultant. You'll circulate, discuss recent purchases, help assess people's collections if they want to show off." She smiled slightly. "Think of it as part of the job. These dinners lead to private sales, estate acquisitions, connections. Dominic needs someone there who actually knows antiques, rather than just pretends to." "Will Valentina Rossi be there?" Gianna's expression grew serious. "Probably. The Rossi family has been pushing for closer ties with Dominic since Isabella died. Valentina especially. She sees herself as the logical choice for his next wife. A way to merge two powerful families." She paused. "She won't appreciate your presence. I'm just an employee. You're someone Dominic trusts. Someone he brought into his inner circle quickly. In their world, that means something. It suggests influence, importance." Gianna gathered her things. "Just be careful tomorrow. Smile, be professional, and don't let Valentina provoke you. She's good at getting under people's skin." The dinner was held at Dominic's penthouse, the space transformed by catering staff and elegant table settings. I arrived in the second outfit from the package, a black cocktail dress that made me feel like I was playing dress-up in someone else's life. Marco met me at the elevator. "Mr. Moretti is in his study. He asked to see you before the other guests arrive." The study was all dark wood and leather, books lining the walls, a desk that probably cost more than a car. Dominic stood at the window, wearing a perfectly tailored suit, that ring catching the light on his hand. He turned when I entered. For a moment, something flickered in his expression, quickly controlled. "Elara, you look professional." He gestured to a chair. "Thank you for coming tonight. I know these events aren't in your job description." Gianna said they're part of the business. "They are, but they're also exhausting, full of people performing rather than being genuine." He sat across from me. "I need someone there who's real, who'll tell me the truth about pieces people show off, who won't just say what I want to hear." "Why me? You have Gianna, other people with more experience." "Because Gianna is brilliant but predictable. People know how she'll respond, what she'll say. You're unknown, which makes you valuable. People will show their true colors around you, thinking you don't matter enough to guard themselves." He leaned forward. "But you do matter, Elara. Your observations tonight could influence deals worth millions. Your authenticity in a room full of facades is worth more than you realize." The weight of that responsibility settled on my shoulders. "What if I mess up?" "You won't. Trust your instincts." He stood, offered his hand. "Ready?" I took his hand, let him pull me to my feet. For a moment, we stood close enough that I could smell his cologne, see the fine lines of grief etched around his eyes. Then he stepped back, the professional mask settling into place. "One more thing," he said as we moved toward the door. "Valentina will be here. She'll likely make comments, try to undermine you. Ignore her. You're here because I want you here, and that's all that matters." The first guests began arriving minutes later. Collectors, business partners, a few people Gianna quietly identified as connected to the family business, which I understood to mean the less legitimate operations Dominic was trying to transition away from. I circulated as instructed, discussing recent acquisitions, examining pieces people brought to show off. A Victorian locket that turned out to be Edwardian. A colonial writing desk that was actually 1,920 reproduction. An authentic Ming vase that made my heart race when I confirmed its provenance. "You're quite knowledgeable," an older man said after I'd authenticated his pocket watch collection. "Where did you study?" "Community college, then on-the-job training," I admitted. "Most of what I know comes from research and handling thousands of pieces." "Honest and educated. Rare combination." He glanced at Dominic across the room. "He chose well with you." "Chose. Like I was a possession rather than an employee." The phrasing bothered me, but I smiled politely and moved on. Valentina arrived fashionably late, wearing a red dress that looked painted on, her hair swept up to show off a diamond necklace that probably cost 6 figures. She made her rounds, greeting people with air kisses and calculated charm, before finally approaching me. Elara, wasn't it? She said my name like it tasted bad. Still playing consultant, I see. Still working, yes. I kept my voice pleasant, professional. How novel, Dominic, hiring someone so inexperienced. But I suppose he has his reasons. Her smile sharpened. He's always been charitable toward strays. Isabella was the same way, always wanting to save broken things. The comparison to Isabella felt like a slap. I'm not broken, and I'm here because I'm good at my job. Of course you are, dear. Valentina touched my arm with false sympathy. But you should understand something. Dominic is still grieving. He makes impulsive decisions when he's emotional, brings people into his life who remind him of simpler times. It doesn't mean anything permanent. I'm not looking for permanent. I'm looking for a paycheck. Good, because permanent isn't available. Dominic belongs to Isabella's memory, and when he's ready to move forward, it will be with someone from his Bada world. Someone who understands the complexities of his position, the requirements of his family. She leaned closer. Someone like me, not someone like you. Before I could respond, Dominic appeared at my elbow. Valentina, I see you've met Elara. His voice was pleasant, but his hand settled possessively at the small of my back. I hope you're being welcoming. Always, Dominic. Valentina's smile was poison wrapped in sugar. I was just telling her how generous you are with opportunities. It's admirable. Elara earned her position through skill and integrity, neither of which can be bought or inherited. The rebuke was subtle but clear. Now, if you'll excuse us, I need Elara's opinion on a piece. He guided me away, his hand remaining on my back until we reached the relative privacy of a corner near the windows. I'm sorry about her, he said quietly. Valentina sees every woman in my life as competition. Is that what I am? Competition? You're someone who returned Isabella's ring when you could have sold it. Someone who works hard, who's honest in a dishonest world. His dark eyes held mine. You're not competition for anything, Elara. You're just you. That's enough. The sincerity in his voice made my chest tight. Before I could respond, Marco appeared, urgency written across his face. Sir, we have a situation. Private. Dominic's expression shifted instantly to something cold and controlled. Excuse me, he said to me, then followed Marco toward the study. I stood alone by the windows, watching Chicago's lights and trying to make sense of the evening. The conversations, the undercurrents of power and politics, Valentina's barely concealed hostility, Dominic's protective gestures that felt like more than employer concern. He really does like you. I turned to find an older woman watching me, elegant in her 70s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. I'm sorry? Dominic? My nephew. She extended a hand. Sophia Moretti. I'm the family matriarch, though Dominic runs the business now. I shook her hand, suddenly more nervous than I'd been all evening. Elara Hayes. I work in acquisitions. I know who you are. Dominic told me about you, about the ring you returned. Sophia's gaze was assessing but not unkind. That ring was the last piece of Isabella he had. Losing it nearly destroyed him. Getting it back. She paused. Getting it back gave him something he hadn't had in 3 years. Hope that not everything precious is lost forever. I just did what anyone would do. That's where you're wrong, dear. Most people would have kept it, sold it, taken advantage. You chose differently. Sophia touched my arm gently. He's been drowning in grief since Isabella died. Barely living. Just going through motions. But lately, these past 2 weeks, I've seen glimpses of the man he used to be. The man who laughed, who saw possibilities beyond duty and obligation. I don't think that has anything to do with me. Don't you? Sophia smiled. Dominic doesn't bring people into his life lightly. Doesn't trust easily, especially after Isabella. But he trusts you. That means something. Before I could process her words, raised voices came from the study. Not loud, but intense enough to cut through the ambient dinner conversation. Several guests glanced toward the closed door, expressions ranging from curiosity to concern. The study door opened abruptly. A man I didn't recognize stormed out, face flushed with anger, followed by Dominic, whose expression had gone coldly dangerous. "You're making a mistake, Moretti," the man said, loud enough that the entire room could hear. "Turning down this opportunity, refusing the partnership, it's an insult." "What's insulting is you coming to my home and threatening me," Dominic replied, voice deadly quiet. "The answer is no. It will remain no. And if you continue to push, you'll discover exactly how final no can be. Your wife would be ashamed," the man spat. "She wanted peace, and you're choosing war." The temperature in the room plummeted. Dominic moved with terrifying speed, grabbing the man's collar and shoving him against the wall. "You don't speak her name," Dominic said, each word precise and lethal. "You don't mention her, think about her, or use her memory to manipulate me. Are we clear?" Marco and 2 other security personnel appeared, efficiently extracting the man from Dominic's grip and escorting him toward the elevator. The doors closed, and silence settled over the room. Dominic straightened his jacket, composed himself, and turned to address his guests with perfect control. "My apologies for the disruption. Business disagreements occasionally become personal. Please, continue enjoying the evening." The conversation resumed, though more subdued. Dominic made his rounds, playing host with practiced ease. But I saw the tension in his shoulders. The careful control masking barely contained rage. When he finally made his way back to me, the mask slipped slightly. "That's the reality of my world," he said quietly. "Men like Antonio Russo, Valentina's uncle, who see everything as a transaction. Who'll use anything, including a dead woman's memory, to get what they want." What did he want? A partnership in some new venture. Drugs, probably, or weapons. Something I've been working to get out of for 3 years. He turned Isabella's ring on his finger, the gesture unconscious. Isabella hated that side of the business. Made me promise before she died that I'd find legitimate ways forward. I've been trying to honor that promise, but men like Antonio see it as weakness. It's not weakness, it's integrity. In their world, those are the same thing. He looked at me, and the vulnerability in his eyes was devastating. "I'm tired, Elara. Tired of fighting this battle. Tired of being what everyone expects instead of what I want to be. Tired of grieving." The admission hung between us, raw and honest. Around us, guests laughed and networked and played their roles. But in our small corner by the windows, Dominic Moretti stood before me, stripped of all pretense, just a man exhausted by loss and the weight of expectations. "What do you want to be?" I asked softly. "Someone who keeps his promises to his wife. Someone who builds something she'd be proud of." He paused. "Someone who can move forward without forgetting what he had." "That's not weakness, Dominic. That's human. In my world, human is weakness, but maybe..." He touched the ring again. "Maybe it's time to redefine what strength means." The dinner wound down gradually. Guests departed with polite goodbyes and carefully neutral expressions. Whatever had happened with Antonio Russo had shifted the atmosphere, injected tension into what should have been a pleasant evening. Valentina was one of the last to leave. She approached Dominic and me, her smile still perfectly in place despite the evening's drama. "Such an interesting evening, Dominic. I hope Uncle Antonio didn't upset you too badly." Her tone suggested she knew exactly how badly he'd upset him. "He can be rather direct when he feels strongly about business opportunities. Your uncle needs to learn that no means no," Dominic replied coolly. "And that threats in my home will have consequences. I'll speak to him." Valentina's gaze flickered to me, dismissive. "Though perhaps if you weren't so distracted by new ventures, he wouldn't feel the need to be so forceful. Elara is an employee, not a distraction." "Of course." "Well, good night, Dominic." She air-kissed near his cheek. "Try to remember who your real allies are. Family alliances matter more than temporary fascinations." After she left, Dominic exhaled slowly. "I apologize. This evening was supposed to be professional, and it became a display of family politics. Is that what I am? A temporary fascination?" He looked at me sharply. "Is that what you think?" I won. Don't know what to think. Valentina says you're grieving and making impulsive decisions. Antonio says you're turning down opportunities. Everyone seems to have opinions about your life and where I fit in it. And what do you think?" He moved closer, his intensity focused entirely on me. "Where do you think you fit?" The question felt loaded with meanings I didn't understand. "I think I'm an employee who returned your wife's ring. That's all." That's not all. Not anymore. His hand lifted, hovering near my face but not quite touching. You're someone who makes me want to be the man Isabella believed I could be. Someone who reminds me that not everyone operates with ulterior motives. Someone who... He stopped, jaw tightening. Someone who makes me feel something other than grief for the first time in 3 years. My heart hammered against my ribs. Dominic. I know. It's too soon. Inappropriate. You work for me. And I'm still wearing Isabella's ring. Still loving a woman who's been dead for 3 years. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair. I know all the reasons this is impossible. Then why are you saying it? Because tonight, when Antonio threatened me, when Valentina tried to undermine you, all I could think about was keeping you safe. Protecting you from my world. From the violence and politics and dangers that come with being associated with me. His dark eyes held mine. That's not how an employer thinks about an employee, Elara. The admission hung in the air between us, changing everything. I should have backed away. Should have maintained professional distance. Should have remembered that he was a grieving widower with complicated business interests, and I was just a girl who'd returned a ring. Instead, I asked, what would Isabella think? About this? About me? Pain flashed across his face. Isabella would tell me I'm being an idiot, that I need to heal properly before dragging anyone else into my mess. He touched the ring. She'd also tell me not to let fear stop me from living. She hated how scared I was of losing things, of letting people close. Were you close? Before her? No. I'd built walls, kept everyone at distance except family. But Isabella, he smiled, sad and fond. She walked through every wall like they were tissue paper. Made me believe in something beyond power and duty. When she died, I rebuilt those walls higher than before. Couldn't stand the pain of losing someone again. And now there's a woman who returned a ring when she could have sold it. Who works 12-hour days and visits her sick mother and somehow still has integrity and kindness left over. Who looks at me like I'm a person rather than a position. His voice roughened. Now those walls feel less like protection and more like prison. I wanted to close the distance between us, to offer comfort or understanding or something. But the weight of Isabella's memory stood between us, tangible as another person in the room. I'm not her, I said quietly. I can't replace her or make the grief go away. I don't want you to replace her. I'm not looking for a replacement, Elara. I'm just... He paused, struggling. I'm just trying to figure out if it's possible to honor the past while still having a future. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Mom's nursing home, calling at nearly midnight. My stomach dropped. I need to take this, I answered, already moving toward the elevator. Hello? Miss Hayes, this is Grace from Lakeside Care. Your mother had a fall this evening. She's stable, but we think you should come. The world tilted. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I ended the call, already heading for the elevator. Dominic followed. What happened? My mom fell. I need to go. My hands shook as I pressed the elevator button repeatedly, uselessly. Marco will drive you. Dominic pulled out his phone, called his driver. I'm coming with you. You don't have to. I'm coming with you, he repeated, leaving no room for argument. The drive to the nursing home passed in a blur. Marco navigated traffic while Dominic sat beside me, his presence solid and anchoring while my mind raced through worst-case scenarios. At the facility, Grace met us in the lobby. Your mother is fine, no serious injuries, but she was disoriented when she fell, confused about where she was. The doctors want to run some tests, make sure there's no underlying issue beyond the stroke damage. I followed her to Mom's room, barely aware of Dominic trailing behind. Mom lay in bed, looking small and fragile, a bruise darkening on her temple. Elara, she said, her speech still slurred from the stroke. I tried to find the bathroom, got lost in my own room. It's okay, Mom. You're okay. I took her hand, fighting tears. She focused on Dominic, confused. Who's your friend? This is Dominic. He's my employer. Nice employer, coming at midnight. Mom studied him with the shrewdness that had survived the stroke. You be good to my girl. She works too hard. I know she does, Dominic said gently. I'm trying to help with that. Grace pulled me aside. The tests will take a few hours. You should get some rest. We'll call if anything changes. I'm staying. Elara, I'm staying. I turned to Dominic. You should go. You have business tomorrow, and this could take all night. I'm staying too. Dominic. You stayed when I grieved over a ring. I'm staying while you worry about your mother. It's not negotiable. He settled into the room's only chair like he planned to root there permanently, so we stayed. Hours passed in the quiet rhythm of hospitals, punctuated by nurses checking vitals and machines beeping softly. Mom slept fitfully. I sat beside her bed, holding her hand, while Dominic remained in that chair, silent but present. Around 3 a.m., when Mom's breathing had evened into deep sleep and the tests had come back showing no new damage, I finally let myself exhale. She's okay, I whispered, more to myself than Dominic. She is. He stood, stretched, moved to stand beside me. You're a good daughter, Elara. She's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. She's all I have left. The exhaustion and fear caught up with me suddenly. Tears I'd been holding back spilled over. I'm so tired of being scared I'll lose her. Dominic pulled me gently from the chair, wrapped his arms around me. I should have pulled away, should have maintained professional distance. Instead, I collapsed against him, letting 3 months of fear and exhaustion pour out while he held me steady. You're not alone anymore, he said quietly against my hair. Whatever happens, you have support now. Financial, practical, emotional. You don't have to carry this alone. Why? I pulled back to look at him. Why do you care this much about someone you barely know? His thumb brushed away tears from my cheek. Because you remind me what it feels like to care about someone's well-being beyond obligation or duty. Because when I'm with you, I remember what it was like to be human, rather than just functional. He paused. Because Isabella would tell me to help someone who needs it, and helping you feels like honoring her memory. This isn't about her, though, is it? No, he admitted. It stopped being about her the night you walked into my penthouse and looked at me like I was a person, not a position. When you asked about Isabella without judgment or expectation. When you cried in your antique shop over returning a ring because it was the right thing to do. I didn't cry. You had tears in your eyes. I noticed. He touched Isabella's ring absently. I notice everything about you, Elara. That's the problem. Why is it a problem? Because I'm still grieving, still wearing her ring, still waking up reaching for someone who's been dead for 3 years. His voice was raw. Because falling for you feels like betraying her memory, even though she'd tell me I'm being ridiculous. Are you falling for me? He looked at me for a long moment, emotions warring across his face. Then quietly, yes. Against all logic and wisdom, yes. The admission hung between us in that hospital room, changing everything again. Mom slept peacefully nearby. Outside, Chicago prepared for another dawn, and in the space between grief and hope, Dominic Moretti and I stood at a crossroads neither of us had expected. I don't know how to do this, I whispered. How to care about someone who's still in love with a ghost. I don't know either. His hand found mine, fingers interlacing. But maybe we figure it out together. Maybe we give grief its space while still allowing room for something new, something neither of us planned but both of us need. And if it doesn't work, if the grief is too much, or your world is too dangerous, or we're both just lonely people making bad decisions, then at least we tried. At least we chose living over just existing. He lifted our joined hands, kissed my knuckles gently. Isabella taught me that life is too short for safe choices. She'd want me to take this risk, to see where it leads. Even if it hurts, especially if it hurts. Because hurt means we're feeling something, and feeling something means we're alive. Dawn broke over the city as we stood there, hands linked, both of us exhausted and scared and hopeful in ways neither of us had been in years. It wasn't a beginning, not really. It was something messier, more complicated. Two damaged people reaching for each other in the wreckage of loss, hoping that together they might build something resembling wholeness. Mom stirred, opened her eyes, saw us standing together and smiled slightly before drifting back to sleep. She approves, I said softly. Smart woman. Dominic squeezed my hand. Let's get you home. You need real rest. And I need to figure out how to run a business on 3 hours of sleep. Marco drove us back as the city woke up around us. Dominic insisted on seeing me to my apartment door, waiting while I fumbled with keys. Exhaustion making my hands clumsy. Get some sleep, he said. Take the day off. I'll have Gianna reschedule anything urgent. I can work Elara. His hand cupped my face gently. Rest. That's an order from your employer. And as something other than my employer? As something other than your employer. He leaned in, pressed his lips to my forehead, a gesture both innocent and intimate. Rest because I need you healthy and safe. Because the thought of you exhausted and vulnerable makes me want to protect you in ways that definitely aren't professional. Heat flooded through me despite the exhaustion. Dominic, sleep. We'll talk later, when neither of us is running on fear and adrenaline. He stepped back. Luca's downstairs. If you need anything, call me when you wake up. He left before I could respond, and I stumbled into my apartment, barely making it to my bed before exhaustion claimed me. I slept for 12 hours straight, dreamless and heavy. When I finally woke, afternoon sun streamed through my windows and my phone showed multiple missed messages. From Gianna. Take all the time you need, Dominic explained. Your mother is priority. From Marco. Luca is stationed outside. You're secure. From Dominic. The nursing home called. Your mother's tests came back clear. She's stable. I've arranged for upgraded care in a private room with round-the-clock nursing. Don't argue. It's done. I stared at that last message, emotions tangling. Gratitude, frustration, the overwhelming realization that Dominic Moretti had just solved a problem I'd been struggling with for months. I called him. Elara. He answered immediately. You're awake. How are you feeling? You paid for upgraded care for my mother. I did. That's not your responsibility. It is now. You work for me, which means your well-being is my concern. Your mother's care affects your well-being, so it's my concern too. His voice was matter-of-fact, allowing no argument. It's done, Elara. Accept it. I can't just accept. Yes, you can. Consider it a benefit of employment. Health coverage extended to family members. A pause. Or consider it someone who cares about you, making sure you don't collapse from stress. Either way, it's not negotiable. I wanted to argue, wanted to maintain some shred of independence. But the relief of knowing Mom would have proper care, that I could visit without constant worry about bills and payment plans, was overwhelming. Thank you, I said quietly. I don't know how to repay this. You don't repay it, you accept it. His voice softened. That's what people do when they care about each other. Elara. They help without expecting repayment. Is that what we're doing? Caring about each other? Silence, then. I think we passed that point in the hospital room. The question is, what we do about it. And what do you want to do about it? I want to take you to dinner. Not as your employer, not as some business obligation, just dinner. You and me, figuring out what this is. He paused. If you're willing. Every practical bone in my body screamed to say no. He was my employer, still grieving his dead wife, connected to dangerous family business. Everything about this was complicated. But he'd stayed with me through the night in a hospital, had solved problems I couldn't solve alone, had looked at me like I was someone worth protecting, worth caring about. Okay, I heard myself say. Dinner. Not as employer and employee. Tomorrow night, I'll pick you up at 7. Relief was audible in his voice. And Elara? Yes? Thank you for taking a chance on something complicated. I promise I'll try to make it worth the risk. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment for a long time, processing everything that had happened in less than 24 hours. The confrontation with Antonio Russo. Valentina's veiled threats. Dominic's admission that he was falling for me. Mom's fall and the long hospital night. The upgraded care I hadn't asked for but desperately needed. My phone buzzed with a new message. Unknown number. You should be careful about getting too close to Dominic Moretti. People who care about him have a tendency to get hurt. Consider this friendly advice. A concerned party ice flooded my veins. I stared at the message, reading it 3 times, trying to understand if it was a genuine warning or a threat. I called Dominic immediately. Someone just sent me a threatening text. His voice went cold instantly. What did it say? I read it to him verbatim. Forward it to me now. I heard him moving, calling someone in the background. Luca, get up to Elara's apartment immediately. Marco, I need phone records traced. Dominic, stay in your apartment. Luca's on his way up. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The line went dead. I stood frozen, staring at my phone. reality crashing down. This wasn't a romance. This was a dangerous man's dangerous world, and I'd just stepped into it with my eyes wide open. Luca arrived within minutes, checked my apartment thoroughly, then stationed himself by my door. "Miss Hayes, you're safe. Mr. Moretti is en route." Who would send something like that? Could be anyone. The Rossi family, business rivals, someone who sees you as leverage against Mr. Moretti. Luca's expression was grim. This is why security is necessary. People in Mr. Moretti's life become targets. When Dominic arrived, he looked like barely controlled rage. He swept into the apartment, checked every room despite Luca's assurances, then finally approached me. "Are you okay?" "I'm scared." "Good. Fear keeps you cautious." He showed me his phone. We traced the message. Burner phone, impossible to track directly. But the phrasing, the timing, it suggests someone from last night's dinner, someone who saw us together and decided to make a point. Valentina, possibly, or her uncle, Antonio, or someone else entirely. He took my hands. This is what I meant about my world being dangerous. People use connections as weapons, target anyone who matters to make a point. Maybe I should quit. Go back to my old life, where the biggest danger was Bernard's bad breath. If you quit, you lose the income that's paying for your mother's care. You go back to drowning in debt, working yourself to death at a job that didn't value you. His grip tightened. And the threat doesn't disappear. They've already identified you as connected to me. Walking away now just makes you vulnerable without protection. So I'm trapped. You're protected. He pulled me close. "I won't let anyone hurt you, Elara. That's a promise, but you need to understand what that protection means. Security detail, limited privacy, constant awareness of threats. It's not a normal life." "What is a normal life for people in your world?" "Vigilant, careful, surrounded by people they trust absolutely." He touched my face gently. "I know it's not what you signed up for when you returned that ring, but you're in this now, whether you want to be or not. The question is whether you trust me to keep you safe." I looked up at him, this complicated man who wore his dead wife's ring and ran businesses I didn't fully understand, and somehow made me feel safer than I'd felt in years. "I trust you," I said, surprised to find it true. "I don't trust your world, but I trust you. That's all I need." He kissed my forehead, that same gesture from this morning that felt both protective and possessive. "We'll find out who sent that message. We'll make sure they understand you're under my protection. And tomorrow night, we'll have that dinner and pretend for a few hours that we're normal people. Are we? Normal people? No. But maybe we can pretend long enough to remember what normal felt. Like, he left me with Luca, stationed outside, and Marco coordinating additional security. I sat in my apartment, processing the fact that my life had irrevocably changed. That returning a ring had led to threats and protection details, and falling for a man who'd never fully be mine because part of him would always belong to a woman who'd been dead for 3 years. It should have terrified me. It did terrify me, but underneath the fear was something else. Hope, maybe, or possibility. The sense that despite the danger and complications, despite grief and threatening texts and family politics, something real was building between Dominic and me. Something worth fighting for, even if it meant fighting his world, his past, and the ghosts that haunted us both. 3 days after the threatening message, Dominic picked me up for the dinner he'd promised. No Marco driving this time, no visible security, though I knew Luca was probably following somewhere behind us. "Where are we going?" I asked as he navigated through evening traffic. "Somewhere we can forget about threats and family politics for a few hours." He glanced at me, something vulnerable in his expression. "A restaurant Isabella and I used to visit. If that's okay with you." Of course it's okay. The restaurant was tucked into a quiet Evanston neighborhood, easy to miss unless you knew to look for it. Inside, red checkered tablecloths, candles and wine bottles, the comforting smell of tomatoes and garlic. An older woman emerged from the kitchen and immediately pulled Dominic into a fierce hug, speaking rapid Italian through tears. He responded in the same language, then turned to me. "Elara, this is Rosa. She's owned this place for 40 years. His hand found the small of my back. "Rosa, this is Elara Hayes." Rosa studied me with shrewd eyes, then smiled and hugged me just as fiercely. "Bella, Bella, Finally, he brings someone. She led us to a corner booth, brought wine without asking, then disappeared into the kitchen. Within minutes, plates of food we hadn't ordered began arriving. "She'll feed us everything she has if we let her," Dominic said, pouring wine. Isabella used to spend hours in Rosa's kitchen, learning to make proper sauce. Rosa closed the restaurant for 3 days when she died. Said she couldn't cook with a broken heart. "Tell me what happened to her," I said gently. The truth this time. Dominic was quiet for a long moment, turning his wine glass. "Car accident. Driver ran a red light, killed her instantly. The driver worked for the Rossi family. It happened 3 blocks from where I'd just refused a business partnership with Antonio." My stomach dropped. They killed her as retaliation. I've never been able to prove it, but the timing was too convenient. The driver served 18 months for vehicular manslaughter, got out on good behavior. His jaw tightened. "That's why I won't work with them. Why I've spent 3 years trying to go legitimate. Why Antonio showing up at my home made me want to destroy him." The food Rosa brought was extraordinary. We ate in comfortable silence, the restaurant's warmth creating a bubble separate from the danger waiting outside. "Your mother," Dominic said eventually. "What was she like before the stroke?" "Strong, stubborn. She raised me alone after my father left. Taught me that integrity matters more than comfort, that doing the right thing is its own reward." I paused. "She would have liked Isabella, I think. Isabella would have liked her too. And you." He reached across the table, took my hand. "She'd tell me I'm an idiot for overthinking this. That grief isn't something you finish before you're allowed to live again. Are you? Allowed to live again?" "I want to be. Want to feel something besides grief for the first time in 3 years." His thumb traced patterns on my palm. "You make me feel human again, Elara. Make me remember there's more to life than just surviving." "What about Isabella? Where does she fit in this?" "She fits everywhere. Part of me will always love her, always belong to her." He touched the ring on his finger. "But what I can give you, I want to give completely. If you're willing to accept someone divided like that, I don't want someone undivided. I want you, exactly as you are. Grief included." His eyes held mine, dark and intense. "That's why this terrifies me. Because you mean it. Because you're not asking me to choose between past and present." Rosa appeared with tiramisu, said something in Italian that made Dominic laugh genuinely. "She says Isabella would approve," he translated. "That she can tell I'm happy again. Really happy. She also threatened to poison my pasta if I hurt you." When we left, Rosa hugged us both, whispered something to Dominic that made his expression soften, then sent us off with containers of leftovers. "What did she say?" I asked in the car. "That she hasn't seen me at peace in. That whatever you're doing, keep doing it. That if I let you go, I'm a bigger fool than Isabella thought I was." "Isabella thought you were a fool?" "Constantly. She had strong opinions about my tendency to brood and build walls." His smile was genuine. "Said I needed someone who'd call me on my bullshit. Someone like you." We didn't go straight home. Dominic drove to the lakefront, parked at a quiet overlook where city lights reflected on dark water. "I need to tell you something about Isabella's ring," he said. "She wasn't wearing it when she died. It was home, being resized as an anniversary surprise. After the funeral, I went to get it and it was gone. Someone had broken in, taken it along with other jewelry. Made it look like a robbery. But it wasn't. No. They came specifically for that ring. Proof of who I was, what I'd lost. When you returned it 3 years later, having found it in a random estate sale, it meant someone in Antonio's organization had sold it." He turned to me. "That's when I knew you were genuine. Not connected to them, not playing some game. Just someone doing the right thing. That's why you investigated me so thoroughly. And when I realized you'd returned it expecting nothing." His voice roughened. It felt like Isabella was sending me a message. That it's okay to move forward. That life continues after loss. He kissed me then, soft and careful, like I might break. I kissed him back, tasting possibility and the beginning of something impossible. When we pulled apart, he pressed his forehead to mine. "I'm still grieving, still loving her. That won't change. I know. And I can live with it, as long as you keep choosing to be present with me. I promise." He kissed me again, deeper. "Thank you for taking a chance on someone broken. You're not broken. You're healing. The next weeks established a new rhythm. Work at the office, authenticating pieces for upcoming auctions. Dominic stopping by daily, sometimes for business, sometimes just to see me. Coffee dates at small shops where no one knew him. Stolen moments of normalcy. Mom's health stabilized in her upgraded room. I visited regularly, sometimes bringing Dominic, who charmed the nurses and listened patiently to Mom's rambling stories. He loves you, Mom said one afternoon, words slurred but clear. See it in how he looks at you. He loved his wife. Still does. Can love both. Heart's big enough. She squeezed my hand. Don't push away good because it's complicated. Everything good is complicated. 2 weeks after our dinner at Rosa's, Dominic invited me to his penthouse. I arrived to find candles, soft music, the windows open to October air. What's this? I asked. An anniversary. 1 month since you returned Isabella's ring and changed everything. He handed me wine. I wanted to thank you properly. For the ring. For your patience. For not running when my world got dangerous. I thought about running. After that text. But you stayed. But I stayed. I leaned against him. Because I wanted to see where this could go. Where we could go. And now? Still want to see? I turned in his arms. Yes. Whatever comes, I want to face it with you. He kissed me, and this time there was no hesitation. Just need and want and building connection. We moved to his bedroom, shedding clothes and careful control, finding comfort in touch. He loved me reverently, whispering my name like prayer. Afterward, tangled in sheets, he held me close, and I felt tears against my hair. I'm sorry, he said roughly. It's been 3 years since I let anyone this close. Don't apologize for feeling. That's what makes us human. Isabella used to say that. He pulled back to look at me. You'd have liked each other. She'd have appreciated your stubbornness. Tell me about her. Really tell me. So he did. In the darkness, Dominic told me about Isabella, how they'd met at an art gallery, how she'd challenged everything he thought he knew about himself, how she'd made him laugh and believe in something beyond power and money, how they'd planned children, futures, a life that was stolen by a drunk driver 3 blocks from a business meeting. I used to hate when people said sorry, he admitted. But hearing it from you feels real, like you genuinely hurt for what I lost. I do, because losing her meant I never got to meet her. He kissed me, soft and grateful. Thank you for not being jealous of a ghost. She's part of who you are, the parts I'm falling in love with. The words escaped before I could stop them. Dominic went still. You're falling in love with me? Yes. Inconveniently, impossibly falling for a man who wears his dead wife's ring, and probably always will. It's not stupid, it's brave. His voice was rough. I'm falling in love with you too, Elara. Have been since you refused money for that ring. Since you looked at me and saw a person, not a position. We fell asleep tangled together, his hand touching the ring while his other arm held me close. It should have hurt, that reminder. Instead, it felt right. Like grief and hope could coexist. 3 months later, Dominic hosted Thanksgiving at his penthouse. Not business, just family. Sophia, his aunt, Marco and his wife, cousins and friends, Rosa and her husband, who'd closed the restaurant to join us. And Mom, released from the nursing home 2 weeks earlier, her speech therapy showing remarkable progress. I helped Rosa in the kitchen, learning proper Italian Thanksgiving dishes. You're good for him, Rosa said. He really smiles now. Isabella would be happy. You think so? I know. She told me once that if anything happened, she wanted Dominic to find someone new, that he'd destroy himself with loneliness otherwise. Rosa patted my hand. She'd like you. Would appreciate that you don't try to replace her. Later, Dominic found me on the balcony, wrapped his arms around me from behind. Hiding? Absorbing. Your family is intense. They like you. Sophia says you're the best thing to happen to me in years. He rested his chin on my head. Even my mother would approve. He pulled out a small box. Inside, a delicate platinum bracelet with a tiny antique key charm. Made from the same platinum as Isabella's ring, he explained, fastening it around my wrist. The key represents what you've done, unlocked parts of me I thought were sealed forever. It's not a ring, not a promise of forever yet, but it's a promise of now. Of trying. Tears burned my eyes. It's perfect. You're perfect. Perfectly patient with a stubborn Italian who doesn't know how to love without grief attached. He kissed me softly. Thank you for staying. Thank you for letting me in. 6 months after I'd returned that ring, Dominic took it off for the first time. Not permanently. Just for a day, while we visited Isabella's grave together. I need to talk to her, he'd said that morning. Explain about us. Will you come? The cemetery was quiet. Isabella's headstone simple despite Dominic's wealth. He knelt, placed the ring on the stone. Bella, there's someone I want you to meet. This is Elara. She found your ring, returned it when she could have sold it. She's helping me be the man you wanted me to become. I knelt beside him. I promise I'll take care of him. Not replace you, never that. But I'll love him with everything I have. Dominic was crying openly. I'm sorry it took so long. Sorry I couldn't save you. I squeezed his hand. You didn't fail her. You loved her completely, grieved honestly. And now you're honoring her by living. That's not failure. That's love. We stayed an hour, Dominic telling Isabella about us, about Mom, about the legitimate business he was building. When we left, he picked up the ring, slipped it back on. I'm not ready to take it off permanently. I know, and that's okay. As long as you're still building a future with me. He pulled me close, kissed me in Isabella's shadow, and for the first time it didn't feel like betrayal. It felt like continuation. One chapter ending, another beginning. 1 year after I'd found that ring, Dominic proposed. Not with Isabella's ring. He'd commissioned something new platinum like hers, but with a sapphire surrounded by diamonds that caught light like stars. The sapphire is for you, he explained on the balcony where we'd first admitted our feelings. Blue like your eyes. The platinum connects to Isabella. But the design is ours. It's perfect. He got on one knee. Elara Hayes, would you marry a complicated Italian with mob connections and a dead wife he'll probably always love? Would you take on his dramatic family and his determination to be better? That's a terrible proposal. It's honest. I'm not offering simple or easy. I'm offering real. He took my hand. Isabella has my past. You have my future, my present, everything I am now. Is that enough? I thought about the year, the threats and security, the family dinners and quiet moments, Mom's improving health, the way Dominic looked at me each morning, sleepy and vulnerable, the way he'd kept trying, kept growing, kept honoring Isabella by becoming who she'd believed he could be. Yes, I said. It's more than enough. He slipped the ring on my finger, pulled me into a kiss that tasted like promise, and the future we'd built from grief and chance. Thank you for taking a chance on me, he whispered. For loving all of me, including the parts that belonged to someone else. Thank you for letting me in. I touched Isabella's ring on his hand, then mine. We're going to make this work. I know. Because you're stubborn enough to make it work, and I'm stubborn enough to keep trying. He kissed me again. Isabella would haunt me if I screwed this up. Epilogue. 2 years later. The antique shop was now Hayes and Moretti Acquisitions. I ran it with Gianna, specializing in estate authentication. Dominic had funded it but let it be mine. Mom had her own apartment 2 blocks away. Her speech dramatically improved. She attended family dinners twice weekly, had adopted Sophia as a sister, traded stories with Rosa about raising stubborn children. Dominic's transition to legitimate business was nearly complete. The Moretti family was becoming respectable. Your grandfather would be furious, Sophia had told him at our wedding. I couldn't be prouder. The wedding had been small. At Rosa's restaurant, I'd worn a simple dress, carried flowers from Isabella's cemetery. Dominic wore Isabella's ring on his right hand, his new wedding band on his left. I carry them both, he explained to anyone who asked. Isabella gave me the ability to love completely. Elara gave me the courage to love again. Now, I watched Dominic sleep, knowing he still had nightmares occasionally. But he also smiled more, laughed genuinely, lived fully. He stirred, pulled me. Close. Morning. The dream again? Yes. But you're here, so it's okay. He kissed my hair. Thank you for staying every time. Hearts are big enough for both. Always will be. He looked at me with love and gratitude. I don't tell you enough how grateful I am. You tell me every day. With how you protect Mom. How you've built something Isabella would be proud of. I touched his face. You honor her by how you live. We got up, started our morning routine. Coffee, breakfast, comfortable domesticity. Before leaving, I stopped at Isabella's photo on our shelf. I'd put it there myself. Thank you, I said to her image, for loving him so completely that he knew how to love me. Dominic appeared behind me. She'd like you. Would have driven you crazy with art lectures. But she'd like you. I wish I could have known her. You know her through me, through every choice I make to be better. He kissed my temple. And your legacy is helping me actually live that instead of just mourning it. That evening, we visited Isabella's grave together. A monthly ritual now. We're thinking about adopting, Dominic told her headstone. We want to give a child the love you and I talked about giving our kids. We'll make sure they know about you. I added my update. Mom's doing well. She talks about how you clearly love Dominic based on how he loves now. We sat as afternoon faded, talking to someone who couldn't answer but whose presence still shaped us. It wasn't sad. It felt natural, like honoring the foundation that made our happiness possible. Walking back, Dominic stopped. I'm thinking about taking off Isabella's ring, not forgetting her. But maybe it's time to trust that her memory lives in my actions rather than jewelry. Would it hurt you? Maybe. But I think it's time. He looked at Isabella's grave. I think she'd want me fully committed to the life I'm building with you. Then we'll figure it out together. Maybe keep it somewhere special, bring it out on her birthday. Make it a choice rather than constant. Relief crossed his face. That's perfect. You always make complicated things manageable. Because I love you. All your complications included. At home, Mom had made dinner, Polish recipes from her childhood. I heard Rosa's pasta is art, but sometimes you need stuffed cabbage, she said when Dominic protested playfully. We ate together, our found family built from loss and loyalty and love. Later, alone on our balcony, Dominic said, I'm happy. Really, genuinely happy. That's because of you. I'm happy too. Because complicated with you is better than simple with anyone else. Thank you for being you, he said. For taking a chance on a grieving widower. Thank you for letting me help put your broken pieces back together. I turned to face him. We did good, didn't we? We did amazing. His hand found mine, wedding bands pressing together. And we're going to keep doing amazing. Together, I said. Always. Together, he agreed. Sempre insieme. The same words from Isabella's ring, but now they meant us. Our promise, our future, our choice to build love from grief's foundation. And somewhere, I like to think. Isabella smiled. The call came on a Tuesday morning, 18 months after our wedding. I was at the shop, authenticating a collection of Victorian jewelry, when my phone rang. An unfamiliar number, but something made me answer. Is this Elara Moretti? A woman's voice. Professional but warm. Yes. This is Sarah Chen, from Family Services. I'm calling about your adoption application. We have a match. My heart stopped. Dominic and I had been in the adoption process for 8 months, endless paperwork and home visits and waiting. We'd almost given up hope. A match? A little girl, 4 years old. Her name is Lucia. She's been in foster care for 2 years after her parents died in an accident. Sarah paused. Your file mentioned your husband lost his first wife in a car accident, that your mother survived a stroke. The social workers felt your family would understand loss, could help Lucia heal. Tears burned my eyes. When can we meet her? This Friday, if you're available. The foster family lives in Oak Park. I'll send you the details. I called Dominic immediately. He answered on the first ring, as always. Elara? What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. My voice shook. They found us a daughter. Silence. Then roughly. Tell me everything. Friday afternoon, we drove to Oak Park together. Dominic gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. Isabella's ring was gone now, kept in a special box we opened on her birthday and their anniversary. His left hand wore only our wedding band. What if she doesn't like us? He asked, voice tense. Then we'll try again until she does. I touched his arm. We're in this together, remember? The foster home was a modest ranch house with toys scattered across the lawn. A woman in her 50s answered the door, smile warm but assessing. Mr. and Mrs. Moretti? I'm Patricia, Lucia's current foster mother. She's in the backyard. We followed her through the house. Through the kitchen window, I saw her, a small girl with dark curls and serious eyes, sitting alone on a swing set. Not swinging, just sitting. She's quiet, Patricia said softly. Hasn't really opened up since the accident. The foster system has been hard on her. Too many moves, too many temporary families. She's learned not to attach. Dominic's expression broke my heart. Can we meet her? Patricia led us outside. Lucia looked up as we approached, her expression carefully blank. 4 years old and already guarding her heart. Lucia, these are the people I told you about. Mr. and Mrs. Moretti. Patricia crouched beside her. They'd like to talk to you, if that's okay. Lucia studied us with eyes far too old for her age. Finally, she nodded once. Dominic sat on the swing beside her, and I sat on the other side. For a long moment, nobody spoke. I like your dress, I said finally. It was purple with flowers, slightly worn. It was my mama's favorite, Lucia said quietly. Her speech was clear, articulate. She used to wear purple all the time. My first wife loved purple too, Dominic said gently. She wore it to our wedding. Said it was the color of possibility. Lucia looked at him sharply. Your first wife died? Yes. In a car accident, like your parents. Does it stop hurting? The question was so direct, so painfully honest. Dominic was quiet for a moment. No, but it hurts differently as time passes. The sharp pain becomes a soft ache, and eventually, you can remember the good things without it destroying you. I don't want to forget them, Lucia whispered. You won't. We won't let you. I knelt in front of her. If you come live with us, we'll talk about your mama and papa whenever you want. We'll celebrate their birthdays. We'll make sure their memory stays alive. Foster families don't like when I talk about them. They say I need to move forward. Then those families were wrong. Dominic's voice was firm. Moving forward doesn't mean leaving people behind. It means carrying them with you while you build something new. Lucia looked between us, hope and fear warring in her expression. What if I'm bad? What if you don't want me after? My chest tightened. There's nothing you could do that would make us not want you. How do you know? You just met me. Because we know what it feels like to lose people you love, Dominic said. And we know that love doesn't have limits. That hearts expand to hold whoever needs holding. That family is built, not just born. Lucia was quiet for a long time. Then, do you have other kids? No. You'd be our first. I smiled. Which means you get all the attention. Good and bad. A tiny smile flickered across her face, the first emotion beyond careful guardedness. Can I think about it? Of course, Dominic stood. We'll come back whenever you want. As many times as you need until you're sure. We visited 3 more times over the next 2 weeks. Each visit, Lucia opened up a little more, showed us drawings of her parents, told us about her mama's singing and her papa's terrible jokes, asked questions about Isabella, about our life, about what it would mean to be our daughter. On the 4th visit, she climbed into Dominic's lap unprompted and fell asleep there while we talked with Patricia. His arms came around her automatically, protective and tender, and I saw tears streaming down his face. She chose us, he mouthed silently. Lucia moved in 3 weeks later, a Tuesday in late spring. She arrived with 1 small suitcase containing everything she owned, a few clothes, some drawings, a photo album of her parents. Rosa had prepared a feast. Sophia had bought enough toys to stock a store. Mom had made Polish cookies. Marco's wife brought books. Our entire found family gathered to welcome this little girl who'd lost everything. Lucia stood in our doorway, overwhelmed by the crowd of strangers shouting welcome. I know it's a lot, I said, crouching beside her. But these people are your family now. They're loud and dramatic and they'll spoil you rotten. But they'll also love you fiercely. All of them, plus a few more who couldn't make it today. I took her hand. Ready? She squeezed tight. Ready. The first weeks were an adjustment. Nightmares woke Lucia crying for her mama. She hoarded food, not trusting it would always be there. She tested boundaries constantly, waiting for us to prove we'd give up on her like everyone else had. We didn't give up. Dominic sat with her through nightmares, telling stories about Isabella until Lucia fell back asleep. I learned to cook her mama's favorite foods from recipes Patricia provided. We created a memory corner in her room where photos of her parents sat beside ones of Isabella, acknowledging that this family was built on love that transcended death. Slowly, Lucia began to trust, began to laugh, began to call us Mama and Papa, hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence. 3 months after she moved in, we took her to visit Isabella's grave for the first time. "This is Isabella," Dominic explained. "She was my first wife. She died before you came to us, but she's still part of our family." Lucia studied the headstone seriously. Then she pulled out a drawing from her pocket, a family portrait she'd made in art therapy. 4 figures holding hands. Her parents, Dominic, me, and her in the middle, connecting them all. "I made this for her," Lucia said. "So she knows I'm taking care of Papa. That I'm not replacing her, just helping." Dominic broke down completely, pulling Lucia into his arms. I knelt beside them both, the 3 of us crying together in front of a grave that had brought us all here somehow. "Isabella would love you so much," Dominic told Lucia. "Would be so proud that you're ours. Do you think my mama and Isabella are friends? Up there?" Lucia pointed at the sky. "I know they are," I said. "They're probably comparing stories about how stubborn your papa is." Lucia giggled, the sound like sunlight breaking through clouds. 6 months after Lucia came home, we finalized the adoption. The courthouse ceremony was small, immediate family only. Lucia wore a purple dress Sophia had bought, honoring both Isabella and her birth mother. The judge smiled as she signed papers. "Lucia Chen, do you want to become Lucia Moretti?" Lucia looked at us, then nodded firmly. "Yes, but can I keep Chen as a middle name? For my first mama and papa?" "Of course," the judge said. "Lucia Chen Moretti. A beautiful name honoring where you came from and where you're going." Afterward, Rosa hosted a celebration at her restaurant. Lucia sat between Dominic and me, her hand gripping ours, finally understanding she was permanent, that we weren't giving her back, that she was ours as much as we were hers. "I have 3 parents now," she announced to the table. "My first mama and papa in heaven, and Mama Elara and Papa Dominic here, plus Isabella watching from heaven too. That's a lot of parents." "That's a lot of love," Mom corrected, speech nearly perfect now. "Love doesn't divide, sweetheart. It multiplies." That night, after Lucia fell asleep in her room, surrounded by photos of all the people who loved her, Dominic and I stood on our balcony looking at Chicago's lights. "We did it," he said softly. "Built a family from broken pieces. We did more than that. We proved that love survives loss, that hearts expand, that choosing to live fully after grief is possible." I leaned against him. "Isabella would be proud. She is proud. I feel it." He turned to face me. "Thank you for this life, Elara. For returning that ring, for staying through complications, for loving a broken man and helping him become whole, for giving me Lucia, for building this family. Thank you for letting me in, for trusting me with your grief and your hope and your future." I touched his face. "For proving that second chances are real." Inside, Lucia called out from a dream. We went to her together, sat on either side of her bed, until she settled back into peaceful sleep. "Sweet dreams, little one," Dominic whispered, kissing her forehead. "Love you, Papa." "Love you, Mama," she murmured without waking. We returned to our room, climbed into bed, held each other in the darkness. "Sempre insieme," Dominic said against my hair. "Always together," I agreed. And we were me, Dominic, Lucia, the memories of those we'd lost, the family we'd built from grief's foundation. All of us together, all of us whole, all of us proof that love was stronger than loss, and that second chances could become forever. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen. Now I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.